Hi, everyone. This is another interview that we're doing for the Sustainable Finance Toolkit, and I'm really excited to have Amy Ryan with us today to talk about her career path, what she's doing with her company, ESG strategies, and to tell us a little bit more about this a really exciting space. I met Amy at a class at Harvard, and she's an awesome, awesome person. I really appreciated her drive. And I'd love to hear from you, Amy, how you have really created your own space within sustainable finance, leading to your startup.
Thanks so much, Stephen. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today and also with everybody at Oikos International. This is such an honor. So thank you so much. And I'm thrilled to be sharing my story of how I've gotten here to this moment in time. It's a very interesting journey. And sustainable finance kind of was the underlying motivator in many ways of this. But honestly, I started out within the world of environmental social governance as a scientist over nearly 20 years ago, starting out actually doing the work in the field, feeling the soil, feeling the water in my hands, and just really seeing the actual impact of what has happened over the previous generations has occurred to our environment. And that gave me a really good lens into the complexity that we have as it relates to healing our earth, but also looking at ways that will be sustainable for the communities that it's involved with and they're being impacted, but also economic ways as well. These issues are so tightly wound amongst each other that it really takes having a holistic understanding of why one aspect very much impacts each other in a negative, but also in a positive way. So I felt it was my duty, if I'm going to be in this field, to really have a good understanding of the headspace that people come to work every single day in when they're talking about policies and decisions and projects that will be impacting the greater environment in the society. So that's, I don't know if you want me to continue I can continue on.
That sounds, yeah, that sounds really cool, Amy. But tell me something more about like what you have done with this like really cool passion, this pathway of like moving from the like tech, the science into now this like finance space.
It was there was like for almost 10 to 12 years straight, I was really heavily traveling all throughout the country in the United States, but also managing projects all over the world. I started working internationally about 2006, which has been just fantastic and really helped grow my one understanding of the international community's perspective on what is going on within their countries, but also globally. But when I was traveling and going on sites that were either oil and gas manufacturing, mining, automotive, food and beverage, there are so many different subsectors within our industries across this planet that have specific particularities of why they are, one, needed, but also two, what is their impact and how does that intertwine with itself within the local communities that they are. For example, visiting a pulp and paper mill in the southwest part of the United States has a very different impact and feel culturally within and outside of the facility itself in comparison to, say, Northeast US or over in Europe. The dynamics locally are so important to understand when you're talking about baseline issues of environmental health and safety, or someone's motivation to want to do their job safely because they have to, or do they truly understand the dangers that are involved in it. And when I'm going through these places, doesn't matter what industry it is, all equally dangerous. Having read fatality investigations to extreme die-off events because of water pollution, there is a similarity in that this was caused by the human. And in a way, what decisions are the humans making that are causing this event to occur. And it's actually a much deeper chain than people realize. And at the core of it is really finance. So
Mhm.
that's when I decided I needed to go to Harvard to really understand from the best professors I could find. And I'm so grateful, and meeting you there was part of that. That really opened that door of the financial headspace and what was that economic driver from those that are really making those key decisions at the top. How can I convey my story to them? And I wanted to understand those learning points. And that's
Yeah,
what, yeah.
totally. And I see that happening across many spaces right now. The key understanding that we have to use finance to communicate to decision makers within the financial space of like how drastically important their decision making is on, like you said, health and human safety, like that, those social aspects, but also on the natural and environmental side.
No
So
question.
like, is that part, I mean, that's clearly part of the reason why you started ESG strategies, and tell me more about like the mission and what you're doing now.
Well, you know, maybe because I've been a natural systems thinker my whole life, I see this as an ecosystem, meaning every reaction has an, or every action has a reaction within a plant, within a community, within a classroom. And I wanted to understand those components that can impact each other. That also includes understanding holistically the motivations and the reactions within the financial space as well. But coming out of, you know, just with the cumulative experience in the hard sciences that I had, but also the business component and understanding the legal side from the compliance space, I really didn't see any firm that would be able to have this conversation, or at least not yet. There are some, and my friends in Europe are doing a great job being leaders in that. The US is coming along, but I didn't see anybody being able to tell this story or helping try to tell this story to leaders in a way that's not obtrusive, but just here is what it is. Let's look at the lens of your entire system of your business or the problem that you're trying to look at, and let's give some different lenses. Let's give some different perspectives and views of why there may be strong motivation, strong feelings from certain aspects within the society or within where you're working. Let's start trying to break down those barriers of misunderstanding. And
Mm.
that's what drove me to create this business with my colleague.
Yeah, yeah, really, really cool. And I know like how vital those conversations are within this space, because for many people, this is something brand new to them, right? You've been
Right.
working within the sustainability and environmental space for 20 years, like you said. But for many,
Yeah.
including myself, my career wasn't in this, right? It was strict corporate, traditional finance, no externalities were considered. The environment and social aspects are something that is completely alien, that's left to the humanities and the social sciences, right?
That's
Um,
right.
and so these conversations must be really, really tough. Like you said, you're having to manage a bunch of different aspects to it. You know, maybe you could tell us a little bit more or teach us something about how you try to approach those tough conversations.
Absolutely, because I think these are the conversations that the younger generations need to be aware of. They need to know how to have them. They need to be able to walk into a location knowing that there's a dynamic of multiple personalities that spans across many types of generations and cultures.
Mm,
So, with that, there has to be a bit of humility when you're walking into a conversation like that.
mm,
I think what's wonderful about the sustainability passion that I'm seeing happening, I would say over the past couple 5 years, but it's really been ramping up lately, is there's a lot of motivation within the young generations to do something about it. And I think that's appropriate because these actions that are happening, as well as the impacts to our climate, the climate emergency isn't going away. So
mm,
we need to figure out how to deal with that. But with that, the passion can sometimes cloud the patience. And I
mm,
think that there's a really, really important need to listen. Listen to the sides of the story, even if you completely disagree with everything that's being said. And having to, because I'm currently kind of on the quote unquote front lines of that with just teaching ESG thought, breaking down those barriers. Just this week, I was speaking with some folks in the local union, and their concerns are that, what happens if unions start not getting their memberships and their structures and their rules start changing, and what about the benefits to those that are still reliant upon it and in the future? And that's a fair conversation, but it's about going, okay, this is what we've got, our state of what we are now in. How can we create new opportunities within the confines that we have to start establishing maybe a new type of apprentice program, or partnering with universities or academic institutions that may not have been thought of before, or partnering with the local school so you can get kids when they already are starting to tune out in the 7th, 8th grade of going, oh, I have to definitely be a college student, or yeah, I'm really good with my hands, but no one thinks it's a good idea to be a union or tradesperson, so I'm just going to try to make it work through college. These are things that these guys can do within themselves. And so I think the beginning of the conversation is not going, this is what needs to be done and we have to make it work. Let them reflect upon their environments and how they start seeing what expansions of thought could be done by just suggesting really soft options at the moment in time. But I think people need to learn how personalities are. And that is not a science, nor is it a financial component, but it's a human component. Because at the end of the day, even the most vehement folks that are against climate change legislation or against this, what really is it against? Is it fear? Is it maybe something that they're afraid of regarding money? So dialing back into where those core motivations are, that is going to be such a key driver for conversation, I think, moving forward.
Totally. And I really appreciate that really empathetic approach that you're bringing to this, of trying to understand the other side. And that's something that I think within myself, understanding how drastic the problem is and like how quickly we need to act to alleviate the worst impacts of climate change on the most vulnerable populations in the United States and globally. It's sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that, especially when you feel the need for action. And I think that's a really, really powerful thing to bring to the conversation, that empathetic listening of trying to understand it. Where do you see this going in the future? Like with a lot of the regulation that's going to be coming out from Europe, I know that you've had a lot of conversations internationally trying to figure out like where you operate within this space. What do you think is coming down the pike, so to say?
No, it's a great question. Europe is leading this conversation as it relates to legislation and action. So I think, and also the United States is teeing up to be part of that in some way. And while that is all going on, that's it. All of these moments are very important so that we can have some sort of structure within our societies that pay attention and give a nod officially from a financial perspective, that this is where funds need to be appropriated to, and that it needs to be proven that those funds are actually going to those last mile efforts. If you could excuse me for one moment, I just need to stop my recording. I apologize.
No problem.
And it's just the impacts of this legislation, I think, are going to be very interesting as the months and weeks go by, especially before COP26 in Glasgow. That is going to be such a pivotal conversation for the globe. Having been at Copenhagen during the last major, I'd say, climate push for the US during the ACES bill of 2009, and seeing what was going on during that time, it was a scurried push to try to inform the intensity of what the impacts are on the climate emergency to the globe. And it just wasn't the right time when it came to decision makers in the country that I'm currently in. But thankfully, the conversation continued and the emphasis continued. So that gives me great hope to see what will come of Glasgow in November. However, I feel because just like you said, the timing, those of us who are subject matter experts in this space, we're all about trying to find last mile solutions right now at this very moment. And when financing can come to join, we're going to be ready to implement and deploy right away. And so that's where been my biggest push is facilitating those partnerships and new ideas just right to the front line in the areas of the communities that need it that most. And the vector that we've been going through right now is education. We really feel it's important that the future generations also are part of this and feel that their decisions and their wants and needs are being heard.
Yeah, that's really exciting to feel that as well. Working with international students in this organization, there's such a energy level and such a desire to be at the table. So I'm excited to hear more of this as we lead up to COP, and fingers crossed more action comes from that. If not, I know that there are many students around the globe or people like you who are going to take the charge regardless. Yeah. So how about you leave us with something inspirational and tell us how we can take this mission forward.
Yeah. I will say this, and I'm going to challenge everybody that is feeling empowered and really motivated to contribute as much as they can or as much as they like to this very, very serious need that the planet has, is that just remember this: when we see images of disaster or fighting or people, all the motivations just seem to be in the wrong place, always think about the entire system that person's within. And it takes a minute to always remember, you got to put yourself in the shoes of that individual. And at the end of the day, we are all human. We all have a beating heart. And even though there are ones that we have to work around and motivate around, if we all want to win this, we all have to realize that each heart deserves a chance. And so we're looking to the future generations. I know I am, and I also have children, so it's very impactful. We look to them to being the ones that really can help bring that brain power and motivation and energy to this fight, because some of us have been going at it for quite a long time.
Totally. That's very powerful, Amy. I really appreciate you taking the time to have the conversation with us. This was super interesting to hear about your history and how it's impacting the work that you're doing now and helping out the future generation. I'll let you end the conversation and sign out.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Stephen. Ever since we met at Harvard, it was just an organic, fun conversation you and I always had. And so thank you so much for offering me this opportunity to speak with the Oikos International Student Body, and just really excited to see where this partnership can go. I'm just thrilled. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. You have a great day.
You too.